What's up, guys? Trevor Hunter here with Dirt Bike Test. Today we have Brent Farrell, one of our senior test riders, and we're going over the all-new 2024 Kawasaki KX450X. I'm not going to kind of go into all the details, but this bike is basically brand new from the ground up, new frame, new reworked engine, whole new chassis, bodywork, all that stuff. So Kawasaki, kind of similar to the motocross bike, went all out in redesigning the new KX450, and we're going to talk about it today. So first, Brent, you were in our 450 shootout last year,
Yep.
and because of that, you actually went out and purchased a KX450 of your own, 2023. And as you've kind of learned in your time with it since then, you have a lot of positives to say, but also some negatives to say with it. How does this bike compare to the old bike?
Well, I think that it's almost like every little nitpick thing that I had brought up about the 23 has been addressed here on the 24. You know, one of the things I've been most vocal about is the kind of off-idle, I don't know how you describe it, just kind of that, lack of smoothness, that kind of abruptness as you come off idle on the 23, even with trying some different map options, which I'm still working on, but I still haven't really come up with a setting or a characteristic that I'm happy with the 23. It's not terrible, but it's just something that I feel like needs some improvement. And after spending a little time on the 24, actually I didn't even need to spend time. I spent 2 minutes and realized that's been solved. The motor is very smooth. It's very easy off idle. I'd say it's a kind of an easy 450 to ride, a little less aggressive than the 23, but probably in general a better overall motor package. Then also, one of the things I noticed a lot about on this bike is it just feels like a lighter, nimbler version of my bike. I mean, I wouldn't say that the 23 is a heavy, cumbersome bike, but when you ride this, it's like wow, they've really given it a lighter feel. I know they've dropped a couple of pounds or maybe a little bit more than that, but it feels light. That's the biggest difference. So after coming off my bike and riding this, I felt like it really is more nimble, has less inertia, that kind of that feel of a big motor rolling underneath you, and like I said, I think they kind of noticed or identified the areas that needed a little bit of improvement and really solved it on this 24. And quite honestly, I'm figuring I probably need to do something new with the 23 and turn it into one of these or something else. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time on this thing today. It's been actually helpful, really, to help me determine some of the things I still want to play around with on the 23. So
yeah,
good stuff.
No, they made a lot of changes, and I think what's important too is they didn't completely lose, like Brent said, they didn't lose the good traits of the old Kawasaki. The old one was very stable, very good bump compliance. It's one of the better bikes in that area, and this new chassis and everything kind of still keeps a lot of that, and that it's still fairly stable, one of the more stable bikes in its class, and the bump compliance is still actually really, really good. And that's kind of one of the fears that a lot of our guys have with all the new bikes, is kind of they're going more kind of supercross, race-oriented bikes, which is good for guys winning in the stadiums, but for the average consumer, it can be a bit of a handful to ride. And so it's good to see that Kawasaki didn't lose that, especially in an off-road bike. A motocross bike, you can kind of get away with it a little bit more, but in an off-road bike, you need a lot of comfort, you need a lot of stability, you need to be able to ride the thing in the roughest conditions and for multiple hours at a time. And this Kawasaki chassis keeps a lot of those good features, but like Brent said, it's a lot lighter and more nimble feeling, and it has the traits of a lighter bike, but the stability and the plantedness of a heavier bike.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the course that we rode it on today was well abused. Yep. A lot of big bumps, braking bumps, acceleration bumps, and I thought the same thing, that something that we've seen a lot of riding a lot of different bikes is more and more rigid frames, and we've seen some of the brands even start to begin to pull back on that, because as even we identified in the 450 shootout last year, some of those bikes were getting pretty hard to ride, where you get them into a more off-road environment where hitting a lot of these bumps, and to your point, we're not riding them in stadiums, so we need a little bit of that compliance, a little bit more flexible traits, and it felt to me like the Kawasaki here kind of bridged that gap really well. They gave it some of the characteristics we were looking for, but didn't lose some of that comfort that some of the other bikes have kind of we've spent quite a bit of time trying to get some of that comfort back into some of the more rigid bikes. So I was really pleased.
Yeah, no, they're the Kawasaki definitely did a good job, and still feels like a Kawasaki, which I think is a good thing for a lot of people. And kind of going back to the engine, it's definitely it's a very smooth linear power band. It's not as abrupt, and I think for a lot of guys, especially our vet riders, they really enjoyed that. But even though it doesn't feel that fast, it's still a very fast bike. I mean, I did the 6-hour Glen Helen today, and off the start, I mean, we were right there with all these modded KTMs and Hondas and Yamahas, and we pulled the start. I think we were second or third around Talladega. So I think that shows that the bike still has plenty of power, though it might not feel like it. And I think a lot of it is just good usable power, especially for an off-road bike. The bike now has the Kawasaki app where you can change the mapping, and we didn't get a chance to dive into that today, but just leaving the bike all stock is very rideable, very easy to ride in an off-road environment, which I think is impressive for a 450 that has enough power to do that, but not be overkill like some of the other bikes have been. And kind of moving on to the suspension, like most bikes, for West Coast off-road, and even Brent here himself, we're up in the kind of the higher tier of speeds. We're a little faster than the average rider, so we're always looking for a little bit more of a stiffer setup. And I do think this Kawasaki is actually not that soft.
No, the time I spent on it, I felt like I could push it pretty hard, and I'm 230 pounds typically, give or take. And right off the bat, I felt like I didn't touch a clicker. I just went out and rode a very, very rough course and immediately felt comfortable, felt stable, didn't feel like I needed to immediately start making changes. I'm sure, spending a little bit more time on this bike, I'd come up with something that was a little bit more suited to my particular, style and weight and all that. But, for a bike right off the showroom floor, I thought it was awfully close to something that would work for not only me, but probably quite a lot of the masses as well.
Yeah, that's definitely an improvement over the last KX450X kind of in stock trim. And for me personally, I started off all stock clickers and everything. Sag, I like a little bit more sag on this bike, especially just kind of helps stability and keeps that rear end a little lower. So I was running around 107, 108 for sag for myself. And then I think the biggest change I did today was just drop the forks to flush. And that kind of helped compensate for the softer fork. I think once we kind of get some valving in the fork and get it a little stiffer, I think I might try and bring that fork height back up a little bit. But kind of dropping the forks really helped for me, just kind of alleviate or kind of band-aid some of that soft fork. And then for clicker settings, I ended up going about 5 to 6 clicks in on compression on the fork. And I sped the rebound up 1 click, and then on the shock, I stiffened up the compression 2 clicks on the shock, the low-speed compression. But overall, it felt like a really fast, competitive bike. I was able to ride at a pretty hard pace, not complete race pace by any means, but a very decent pace, and with really hardly any quirks or anything. Just definitely one of the better setup off-road bikes in stock trim.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, look forward to maybe seeing how this compares to some of the other 24s, and but I think, so far a lot of positives, especially coming from somebody who knows the 23 platform really well. Yeah. So I was really happy to see what they've done, and I think that they moved a few things in the right direction, but didn't move things that shouldn't be changed.
Yes.
So
yeah,
all in all, a good package.
Yeah, Kawasaki, I think they did a really good job with this bike, and looking forward to spending a lot more time with it and trying some different parts and setup tips and whatnot. But overall, we have a really good starting point, and it's a good day on the new green machine. So for now, just stay tuned at dirtbiketest.com for more on this bike and all of our other testing adventures, and we'll see you out on the trail.